Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking a really fascinating philosophical analysis by the thinker Ali Al-Shurafa Al-Hammadi. It's centered on this concept that honestly affects every single one of us, the dichotomy of light and darkness in our modern world. We're going to impartially explore Al-Hammadi's take on how humanity's relationship with divine methodology has fundamentally shaped the global chaos we're seeing today. It's a super profound look at human conscience, so let's jump right in. We've got to start by looking at the stark picture the author paints of our current world. As Al-Hammadi points out, the tragedies we see on the news, they're no longer just isolated incidents or passing conflicts. They've kind of transformed into a general human condition. I mean, we're talking about unjustly spilled blood, homes completely destroyed right over their inhabitants, children killed in cold blood, and fundamental human rights basically lost in the wind. It's literally as if mercy has been entirely stripped from human hearts, you know? The source argues that this grim reality isn't just bad politics, it exposes a really deep, fundamental flaw in humanity's relationship with the methodology of its creator. Section 1, the global human crisis. Okay, let's dive into this and clearly define the core problem driving our current state of global chaos. Now, looking at the sheer, overwhelming scale of this crisis, Al-Hammadi poses a profound, pivotal question. Right in the heart of all this darkness and suffering, we have to ask, where is the light that God sent down to guide humanity? Like, where is the actual tangible impact of the message that was brought to pull people out of the darkness and into the light? It's a rhetorical question, of course, but it brilliantly forces us to stop and evaluate how incredibly far our current reality has drifted from its intended spiritual path. Section 2, the missing divine light. What's really interesting here is how this totally redefines the way many approach sacred texts today. The source emphasizes that the revolution of the Quran was meant to be a massive, defining event in human history. It was never intended to be merely a book you just recite during empty rituals. Instead, it was delivered as a comprehensive, actionable methodology for life. Think of it like a living blueprint that, if actually followed, leads human civilization directly toward mercy, justice, and lasting peace. To anchor this perspective, the author points directly to this beautiful verse from Surah Ibrahim. A book we have sent down to you so that you may bring people out of darkness into the light by the permission of their Lord. And that perfectly encapsulates the intended true light of the message. The explicit goal, written right there in the text, is the active, deliberate liberation of humanity from the shadows of ignorance and cruelty. But if the goal is so clear, why is the world so dark? Section 3, the painful paradox. And this brilliantly illustrates the painful paradox. The author neutrally details a striking hypocrisy deeply embedded in modern society. People loudly raise religious slogans, yet their daily actions operate in complete opposition to the essence of their faith. On one side, you have the empty ritual of reciting verses, contrasted directly with a total failure to establish justice in the real world. On the other side, people speak beautifully about mercy, but then practice extreme cruelty in their daily dealings. The methodology has basically been completely hollowed out. And the tragedy here is that the divine methodology leaves absolutely no room for this kind of contradiction, as highlighted in this verse from Surah An-Nahl. Indeed, Allah orders justice and good conduct and giving to relatives, and forbids immorality and bad conduct and oppression. The command is explicitly clear, right? Enforce justice and actively reject corruption. According to the source, the sheer clarity of these commands makes the current hypocrisy and the reduction of faith to mere rituals even more striking. So what happens when humanity ignores this clear blueprint? Section 4, consequences of abandonment. Let's move to the next slide and see how this builds. Al-Hammadi traces a very specific chain reaction of internal destruction that happens when humanity leaves the light. It doesn't happen all at once, you know? First, it starts with hardened hearts. That leads directly to step 2, dead consciences. Without a functioning moral compass, we reach step 3, minds lacking reflection and deep thought. And finally, with the intellect and spirit completely compromised, we arrive at step 4, the absolute dominance of selfish human desires and misguided narratives. To prove that this crisis stems from active abandonment, rather than just, say, innocent ignorance, the source points to a very specific description in Surah Al-Furqan. And the messenger has said, "O my Lord, indeed my people have taken this Quran as a thing abandoned." The author uses this specific verse to underline that the divine text isn't missing. It's been willingly abandoned. It's been entirely disconnected from the reality of daily life, economics, and governance by the very people who claim to revere it. And here is the terrifying truth. Abandoning the light doesn't just leave a neutral, empty void. No, when the light goes out, the darkness rushes in, inviting catastrophic, human-made chaos. We see the external, real-world results of that internal chain reaction. Wars devouring everything in their path, disasters shaking the very stability of nations, and open conflicts literally tearing societies apart from the inside. The source argues this global breakdown is the direct, unavoidable result of humans trying to operate the world without the manufacturer's manual. This concept is powerfully cemented by this verse from Surah Ar-Rum. Corruption has appeared throughout the land and sea by reason of what the hands of people have earned. Al-Hammadi argues that the global darkness we see isn't some arbitrary punishment. It is entirely a self-inflicted crisis. It's manufactured by human hands that have deliberately turned their backs on guidance, proving that when behavior separates from revelation, life just turns into an unregulated, open conflict. But listen, the analysis does not end in despair. Section 5, the path to salvation. So, the crucial point is this. The crisis is not the absence of the divine message, but the active abandonment of it. It's a crisis of application, not a lack of resources or a missing text. And honestly, because the hollowing out of the religion is the core problem, the solution is actually incredibly hopeful. Why? Because it means the answer is already sitting right within our reach. We just have to pick it back up. The author calls for a sincere return to the origin. But what does that actually look like in practice? Well, it means reading the text for deep reflection, not just rote, thoughtless recitation. It demands prioritizing real-world action over empty claims of faith. It requires us actively establishing justice in our communities, reviving genuine mercy in our daily interactions, and anchoring peace as the absolute ultimate standard. Salvation requires bridging the gap between ritual and reality by actively applying the Quran as a living methodology. Al-Hammadi concludes his analysis with this incredibly profound and beautiful thought. Whoever returns to the light, their life will shine, even if surrounded by storms. It's a really powerful reminder that the spiritual laws of light and darkness are unchangeable. No matter the chaos outside in the world, realigning yourself with the core values of justice and mercy brings an undeniable internal and external illumination. Which brings us to the final thought for you, the viewer. We've explored the profound disconnect between stated beliefs and lived realities on a global scale. But change always starts individually, right? So how will you bridge the gap between your own core beliefs and your daily actions? Take a moment today to really reflect on that. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep seeking the light.
مؤسسة رسالة السلام العالمية، رسالة إنسانية لعالم أكثر سلاماً.